Here's Jeff. So the good things, and we discussed this during the session, but the good things here is that your body position is good, your hips and legs are high in the water, your head doesn't do a whole bunch of extra motion or excessive motion, and you got pretty good rotation. So those are all good. Your extension is actually pretty good as well, but like I mentioned, and you'll see it with the underwater, when you're extending downward a fair bit. It wasn't too bad, but a little deeper than you need to go. So throughout the video, you'll see where that changes. You get a nice relaxed stroke, a good long stroke. You're finishing the stroke pretty well. So all that checks out. And then what I look at here is, are your hips and legs going far out of your streamline, and they're not. So you're doing a good streamline, or your legs and hips are following along in the sort of funnel or tube that your upper body creates. And from the front, what you can look at is, does your head drive underwater at all? And some of the strokes, you can see your head is driving all the way underwater. So that's something you don't want to do too much of. You want your head to stay sort of right at the surface, at the same level. And the main reason is if your whole head is underwater, it's just more surface area that you need to push through. So here you can see the extension going a little deeper than I'd recommend. And then once you start the pull, you're doing what I call or refer to as a straight arm pull, meaning you're pretty much just pulling straight down and straight back. So that's basically the second best way to swim. And we talked about high elbow catch or early vertical forearm, so that you can get a lot more leverage on the water right from the beginning of the stroke. All right, and here I think we just asked you to reach forward more, so you can see the difference in the stroke already just by reaching up, as opposed to reaching downward when you're extending forward. You're also doing a good job of extension, so like I said, work on extension and the direction of your extension. But this is a really smooth style of swimming. This would be what you're doing right here is what some coaches will call a modified catch-up stroke, in that you have just a bit of a pause at the apex of your extension. You could, I gotta say this two ways. In flat, smooth, open water, from a energy standpoint, having that pause there is okay if you are okay giving up a little time but saving some energy. If you're going purely for time, then you really don't want to have any sort of pause. You want to extend as far as possible. You just don't want to pause at the tip of the extension. Now, if you're wearing a wetsuit, you can glide a bit. So here, this is catch-up stroke. This is where you actually do want to have a pause so that you're working on the drill. So what you're working on with catch-up is a nice long extension or forward reach, and then the catch, the technical high elbow catch. As a reminder, the way we talked about working on that was to roll your shoulder inward, and then your elbow rotates externally. And you really want to do that as early as possible in the stroke cycle. Some of it will be limited by range of motion and flexibility, so there are stretches you can do, shoulder swings, shoulder stretches.
Very good.
When you're doing, this is one arm drill, you're doing a pretty good job of getting a good one arm catch here. So what you do on this one is, again, just working on a nice extension and then really focusing on trying to get that high elbow catch. So that was pretty good right there. That's pretty good. That's good. There's a little bit of more of a straight arm pull on that one. That was a good catch right there. So you can see how the forearm and the hand adopt a different angle than the upper arm. And this was thinking about a good catch. Still a little low on the extension, you notice that? When you're reaching forward, you're reaching down a little bit more than I'd recommend there. But the catch is pretty good.
Go.
And then this was a timed 50, I think, working on good catch, good reach.
So here we're working on, extending forward and getting the high elbow catch.
This was doing Powerstroke. So this is a nice, strong way to swim.
Looks good.
Alright, and then here you're going to have a handful of freeze frames. So this first round is from me filming you before I made any comments to you on last week. So it's a good extension, just a little low. And then a bit of a glide here. So you're kind of gliding and extending. Now you're starting to pull. And you can see when viewed from the side, your arm is basically completely straight. So what happens there is that, see how the hand and forearm angle in the previous frame there, they were still kind of angled parallel to the bottom of the pool. When you're angled parallel to the bottom of the pool, you're not really pulling yourself forward, so you want to get perpendicular as quickly as possible, or vertical. So this is after making comments. So still straight arm at this point, and then you can start to see the break from the upper arm to the forearm. And here's a good example of getting a catch now. You want to get it a little earlier. Good job.